Welcome everyone to the March 21st meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Services Board. Before we begin today, I would just like to acknowledge that unfortunately, once again, we have experienced the loss of two police officers in the performance of their duties, Constable Travis Jordan and Constable Brett Ryan at the Edmonton Police Service. And we continue to acknowledge the heroism of our police officers every day as they go out to do their duties. So let's take a very short moment of meditational silence to acknowledge their passing. Thank you for that. We'd also like to welcome here today Ron LeClaire. Now, he has been attending virtually, but he's actually here today bodily, so it's one of those weird things in society today. Oh, it went off. Okay, my mic was on. Okay, I hit the other button. There's two buttons here. Okay, thank you. Did you hear the first thing I did then? Or should I redo it?
You should probably redo it.
Okay, I'll redo that. Okay, there's two buttons here. One is on off and one is on off. So. Okay, I'll start again. Welcome to the March meeting of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Services Board. Unfortunately, we once again acknowledge the loss of two police officers in the performance of their duty. Constable Travis Jordan and Constable Brett Ryan were killed earlier this week in Edmonton. So we just take a moment to acknowledge their loss. Thank you. And thank you for that. We'd like to welcome Ron LeClaire. Ron has been at our meetings before virtually, but we actually get to meet him now in person. It's that weird social thing we're doing nowadays where we're meeting people that we only ever met virtually for 2 or 3 years, and now we meet them in bodily form. So it's kind of a weird thing to meet people that you've already known in another way. So Ron is the Police Service Board Advisor, and he is with the Provincial Inspectorate of Policing for the Solicitor General's Office, and he is in charge of Zone 6, which we are in. And he both advises and monitors the board. So we welcome him here today and certainly appreciate any input you have to decisions or deliberations that we make today. With all of that said then, what we're also going to do is I'm going to, before we begin the meeting, is ask the board if we could move up item 5.1 and we will deal with it right after item 2. Could I have a motion to do that, please? The mayor and Matt Hall, and all those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, with that said, we'll go on to the agenda. And number 1 is the declaration of pecuniary interest. Do we have any today? Seeing none, we'll proceed. Number 2, the correction and reading and approval of the minutes. And I believe we have one item there. Member Hahn.
Yes, good morning, and the only change I would like to request is a correction in the minutes of February 22nd. It had brought forward that I had attended the meeting or joined and left and joined again, and I was actually out of country, so I did not join. So if that could be eliminated from the minutes, that would be great.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes with that amendment included. Moved by Matt Hall, seconded by Colin Grantham. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to item 5.1. We have with us today Matt Payne, an IT manager with the municipality. And so we're looking at item 5, items from Chief Campbell, 5.1, contracted IT support. So Chief Campbell, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm just going to open the report up here. So this is a report that I brought forward to the board for their information. As part of the budget presentation from December of 2022, you'll probably remember I had asked for and built into the operating budget monies to hire a second clerk position in relation to administrative work within the service. Currently, we have a uniform member who is at work on accommodation or being accommodated, and that member is picking up the responsibilities that would really fall for that second clerk position. And it appears that member is going to be in that area for an extended period of time. What I'm looking to do is to apply the monies that were made available for the hire of that position to hire on a temporary basis a IT person that can then assist us in getting a number of our priority projects off the ground. Our current state is we do rely obviously on the municipal IT division under the management of Matt Payne, and I know that his work area is stressed, maybe the term I'll use, with other priority projects as well. And so I would like to relieve some of the pressures that our IT service are doing, and this seems like a natural fit. What I'm suggesting is that this person would be a contracted employee, not a new member into the service, but a contracted employee, and that I would relinquish the identifying of the most appropriate person to Matt and his team, knowing what skill sets are required to allow us to get our projects off the mat and operational. So that's the content of the report from myself to the board. Again, I did sort of tee Matt up a little bit that if he was available, if he could attend the meeting to answer any questions that the board may have in regards to tenure, skills, identifying how those projects look, and some timelines he may have. So I'll maybe just leave it at that, and certainly field any questions from the board.
Does the board have any questions for either the chief or Mr. Payne? Mayor Grant?
Yeah. Not a question, just a comment, Chief. I really appreciate the creative use of the resources and trying to stay within the budget. So I want to say thank you for that.
Member Hahn?
I fully support the motion being brought forward too. I was just wondering on what anticipated contract time frame you were looking at. I know there seems to be some huge projects that would take quite a bit of time to complete. So I was just wondering if you could give an idea of how you would go out to for the contract term.
Through the chair to Member Hahn, I think this might actually be a dual answer you might get here. I think some of the timelines, again, there are, as I say, 3 or 4 priority projects that we're looking to, again, use the term get up off the mat and running. Beyond that, though, I know that there are some other NG 911 elements that, again, I think that by selecting the right person, there could be a natural handoff of some of those project management responsibilities to this person as well. So the relationship of who Matt identifies and potentially brings into the organization, when I say that I mean the municipal organization, there may be some additional activities that that person may be able to also start to engage and further the business of the municipality as well, not just specific to the police service. But I'll certainly let Matt provide some feedback in regards to that as well.
Thank you. We would be looking to kind of really start right away with contract as soon as possible. This person could be here for up to a year. What we'd be looking for is to kind of jumpstart us through a lot of these projects, and then beyond that, if we have additional funding sources from NG 911, future projects and government grants for that kind of stuff, hopefully this person would dovetail into that and continue those projects all the way into 2025 is when we have to have the NG 911 fully sorted out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Member Hall.
I wasn't here, I think, when the NG 911 stuff got started last year. I'm just wondering if you can kind of go over like the features and what we can expect when that system gets implemented. What makes it different from our current 911 system?
Great, thank you. The biggest differences is being able to take digital ways of receiving 911 calls and some advances in dispatching those as well. So basically the technology will be putting in basically a base layer where things like full video text messaging to 911, live stream type activities, full GPS using the cellular signals and things like that will become a possibility for dispatch to receive, which would enable a lot more the next generation type interactiveness for 911 dispatch and call taking. So on a technical level, it's removing the old legacy telephone systems and putting in new IP generated computer across the board technology. So it's really paving the way for the next generation, the next 10, 20 years of PSAP.
Thank you. Any more questions for either the chief or Manager Payne? Well, with that said, I'd like to thank you for coming today, Matt, and also to acknowledge that the centrality of IT support in municipal governance and police work, it's absolutely central, and without it, I think we're almost incapable nowadays of connecting with the world and conducting business. So it's absolutely critical. With that said, then there's a recommendation that the board receive POL 2023-05 for information and to have it implemented. Do I have a mover? Member Hahn, a seconder, Mayor Grantham. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And with that, we thank you, Manager Payne, for attending, and you don't need to stay around for the rest of the meeting unless you really want to. As exciting as that may be. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move now on to communications, and we'll treat this, if you like, as a consent agenda. Are there any items here that people would like to speak to between 3.11 and 3.17? Mayor Grantham.
Yeah, the DNA canvas protocol, Chair.
Okay, any others that we'd like to deal with today? Okay, well, with that said, what we can do then is listen to 3.12 DNA Canvas Protocol. And Mayor Grantham, do you have a question regarding that?
No, I read it and I understood it. I just wonder how it fits into our local policing. Oh, my apologies. I have read the report, and my question was, how does that fit into our practice here in Strathroy-Caradoc? Is there do we have a policy? And if it's a fair question in open session, is it something that we've had to do in the past?
Through the chair to Mayor Grantham, I'm going to sort of, I think, answer in reverse order. We have not, through any of our investigations, had to go down this path of multiple requests for DNA samples. The history behind this correspondence dates back, I want to say 3 to 4 years ago, if not even longer, to an investigation conducted by the OPP in the Haldimand, Norfolk area, I believe it was, in relation to a stranger on stranger sexual assault investigation. And at the time, there were a number of migrant workers who were asked to provide consent DNA samples as part of an investigation. There were some charter arguments brought forward in that case that has sort of led us to the point of the idea behind this correspondence. So the idea is, I think in this correspondence, is to give police services some tools and some direction as to how to navigate those investigative pathways without infringing on individual rights. So where it's going to impact us is one, to ensure that we are meeting compliance to legislative and rights of individuals, to ensure that we are not obviously infringing on those rights. Do we have a policy? We are working on developing and enhancing the policy we have in regards to the collection of evidence. Again, these are very fluid types of cases that when they come forward and there is some case law that is developed that was, I think, a result of this case, it then obviously puts you in a little bit different direction of ensuring that you are now in compliance with what the new compliance measures are.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. That answered my question.
Thank you, Mayor Grantham. Member Hahn.
It was good to know that we haven't locally used this consent process previously, but when I was reading it, I was interested that there was that voluntary consent, the right to refuse. And I thought if you were a person and you determined while this canvas protocol was happening that you did want to refuse, what would be the next step in an investigative process if you had that opportunity to refuse?
Again, through the chair to Member Hahn. So every person has a right to choose to either voluntarily participate in an investigation and then withdraw those rights, obviously, at any certain time. Without sort of getting too far into the weeds, if we had an investigation where a community member opted to exercise their rights, we would certainly honor those rights. There are different investigative processes where perhaps if it meets the threshold or the standard, where you can apply for and get judicial authorization, which is a fancy way of saying getting a warrant to require someone to either provide a sample or the police take a sample. That might be one option. But there are a multitude of ways to, through processes, collect discarded samples of DNA that you might be able to then utilize as part of your investigative
Thank you.
process.
Thank you. If there are no more inquiries about items 3.11 through 3.17, I'd be looking for a motion to accept those as received. Mayor Grantham, seconded by Member Hall. All those in favor? Thank you very much. We'll move on to 3.2, the 2023 Spring Conference Annual General Meeting Member Sponsorship Opportunities. And who would be speaking to this? Would this be the chief, or is this just something that we're going to, does anyone wish to discuss it? Member Hahn?
I know, since we do have our local Zone 6 representative, I know that generally at the Zone 6 meeting, they provide the sponsorship for the spring conference. So is that maybe the process we should, versus an individual police organization, go through the Zone 6? Encourage Zone 6 sponsorship.
Okay, thank you for that. Ron, did you want to speak to that?
I think this is just a standard request from the different agencies regarding the conference and general meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, if any members of the board are interested in attending, please let me know and then we can start setting that up. And I don't know what the deadlines are, but Mayor Grantham?
Well, I can actually answer that. Both Member Hall and I have already signed to go and look forward to it.
That's fantastic. Okay, thank you. So we'll accept a motion to accept 3.2 for information. Member Hahn, Member Hall, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to number 4, the review of monthly police service reports, and we'll turn the floor over to the chief for 4.1.
Thank you, Chair. And I think at our last meeting, before I started the monthly review, I put on the table we were going to try to move through them as quickly as possible. I'll try to keep that same promise for this meeting. So I'll just touch on some of the reports without getting into the weeds or very deep detail, but certainly trying to keep an eye for any questions that might arise as we sort of flip through the various reports. So again, the activity report, this one is a little different than some of the ones I've recently reported on, where there's a bit of a step back, I would say, in some of the numbers that we're reporting, both in occurrence number totals from where we were in previous years, and even in the charge summary table, the second table there, charge numbers are down just a little bit. Over in the criminal investigation division, again, there is 6 different bullet points. Bullet point number 3, I just again wanted to bring attention to the board. This is the grandparent scam, which I know is well advertised, spoken a lot about in various circles. Wanting to keep the board informed. Obviously, we are working alongside, there's now an OPP task force that is working at a more provincial level. I can tell you specifically in regards to one investigation, we have acquired some video surveillance from a local resident identifying, or at least an image of a suspect and a suspect vehicle. And we have shared that both locally and regionally in an attempt to try to identify who this suspect is.
Member Hahn.
The one I wanted to ask, Chief, is the very first one, actually, the cryptocurrency scam. I noticed the age of the person being very young, and the defraud dollars was huge. And I think this is an up-and-coming scam that many people are maybe not as familiar with. And I was wondering even if possibly in the community services report, we may bring forward some information on what to be aware of with cryptocurrency scams. I understand that the sites that advertise them look very real until you get further into, bringing forward your dollars, that it does look like you're investing in cryptocurrency. And so I just feel that this is an area that needs maybe a bit more attention.
Through the member to Member Hahn, I do completely agree. I think when you look at trends, the grandparent scam is a scam that certainly targets a certain segment of your population. I think on the other side, cryptocurrency, maybe a little more wider gap of a targeted audience. I'm a little bit surprised when a victim is this young. There tends to be at least a perceived or a perception that younger investors might be a little more in tune to different electronic cryptocurrency, sort of how to navigate those things as opposed to, say, a more senior citizen. I do agree that we do continually have to keep massaging our message about fraud-related activities using the different sources. And I do know that at the provincial level, there is some messaging that is geared towards trying to make the messaging consistent across the various police services that are trying to connect with their community members to make them aware of what is the latest scam or fraud being perpetrated, and how to best protect yourself from being a victim. And I do agree that this is a substantial amount of money. And I know our investigators will try their best to work towards recovering some of that monies, but it does present some challenges sometimes with this type of investment type scam.
Thank you, Chief. And I guess we have to acknowledge that any online scheme that appeals to our fear or greed or sometimes our generosity, when they're trying to manipulate our emotions, generally that's where we need to take a breath and consult with people who understand these things a little bit better before we start clicking away and going to links and sending money. I think impulsive sending of money is a bad idea at any time online, and if you're being manipulated, there could be something behind it. Mayor Grantham.
Yeah. Chief, I was looking for, but didn't see it, maybe later. Was there a street crime unit report in your monthly report?
Again, through the chair to the mayor. It would appear in here, in the criminal investigation division report. The last bullet point, there's just a brief reference to the street crime. I'm just, I know that there was a couple of drug warrants executed, but I don't think that they made it to the narrative of this report.
Okay. Thank you, and I did miss that bullet point. Thank you.
Sorry, just moving just quickly through the other reports. Court clerk report there identifies the volume of cases that were created in the month of February. The uniform crime reporting, which again is the violation, just talks about some of the trends that are occurring there. You'll see our collision numbers for the month of February. In this calendar year, certainly a drop from where we've been in previous years. We do see an uptake in some mischiefs that have been reported. There was 13 in the month of February for a year total of 22, which is a little bit ahead of where we were in previous years. On the community services and the mental health officer report, again, in the second section there in the media, you'll see that Councilor McIntyre has been active in regards to some of those fraud-related activities and navigating some messaging. The second half of the media there, she's also been very active, furthering some of the activities, some of the good work that I know the local council has been had as a priority with homelessness and the coldest night of the year, and certainly just making community aware through our media outlets of some of those activities that have been going on. I will speak a little bit later, or I can bring it forward now. There was a mobile crisis report document that was provided by our friends at CMHA, Canadian Mental Health, which provides some data in relation to the work that our team, our MCERT worker and Constable McIntyre are doing, identifying number of live calls, follow-up calls. So I can certainly pause now and answer questions in relation to that report, or we can bring it up as a separate report and I can take questions at that time.
And that's an excellent idea. And MCERT and street crime unit reports come up rather regularly. I might suggest that at a future meeting, maybe it might be appropriate to have some of the officers who are involved in these come in and make a brief presentation to the board or even to council, so we're more aware of the successes they're having in those areas. That's just a suggestion for future meetings then.
I don't disagree with that suggestion. I know Constable McIntyre opted to go to Caradoc North and flip pancakes with the kids this morning. She won the coin flip, otherwise I was going and she was coming here, but I do agree. I think it's an excellent opportunity to bring those members in and have them provide first-hand accounts of their activities to the board. Member
Hahn.
And I was interested in that MCERT report, the final 2022-23, 4.8. Because I think it's such an excellent program that diverts people from the hospital versus apprehension versus, again, the whole process. But what I wanted to ask with that report was, it was very difficult to read on our agenda package because it broke it up from the columns. Did everyone else have that difficulty too? And I wondered if maybe we could have that brought in a report that we could read. A legal form or just, I couldn't read it very well, and I'm really interested in those stats. So if that could maybe be brought forward after the meeting and or prior to a presentation.
Again, through the chair to Member Hahn, actually, Jen and I had that conversation yesterday about the formatting of that report. We can certainly, I can email it, and we can email it to the board members, but certainly we'll work to resolve those issues going forward on how best those cell reports that have multiple columns and years, it is a challenge, I think, when they get moved to an e-scribe format, but.
Very good.
An excellent idea, and anything we can do as a police board to promote the idea that we have a progressive, proactive, effective police force that basically works for the benefit of the community, so we can make that better understood. I think certainly it's something that this board and the council should pursue. Any other comments before we move on in the agenda? Mayor Grantham.
Yep, thank you, Chair, and through you, this is more of a comment and a statement, and I'm sure the chief will weigh in. On the MCERT, I became aware of the mental health issues through the homelessness, but early on in my tenure as mayor, I had a citizen reach out to me who had an issue with a family member in mental health, and there attempts to be serviced, if you will, through our local hospital. And I know that our police force is doing all that they can, and I'm going to use the wrong adjective here. There's an issue with the hospital, chief, or something that our hospital could do more of that would help out in the local issues with mental health. Would you be prepared to speak to that, chief?
Certainly through the chair to Mayor Grantham. I got to start with identifying that our relationship with Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital is one of our priority relationships as we continue to try to provide care, the right care at the right time for the right community member. Certainly it is very important, I think, that this community has and maintains a local hospital. I think there's so many important pieces to communities having local hospital, and again, without going too far off the speaking points here, I think we see that on a fairly daily or weekly basis with some of those communities a little bit north of here that are smaller in size and are having some challenges keeping their hospitals open, especially or specifically their ED departments open 24/7. So with that sort of on the table, we continue to work with our partners, specifically in the emergency department at the local hospital, as we treat community members who are going through various forms of a crisis. And that crisis might be a full-blown mental health crisis. It may be a dip in their daily activities where they are maybe requiring some attention from a trained medical professional at the local hospital. I am scheduled to meet with them tomorrow regarding the hospital transition protocol agreement. This was an initiative that originated, I believe it was 2019, and it was a collaborative effort between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of the Solicitor General to deal specifically with police services who are bringing community members to a local hospital either voluntarily or through an apprehension under the Mental Health Act, and coming up with terms of reference for how do we efficiently transition or transfer a person from care of the police to care of the hospital. We are working through that protocol agreement, which hopefully will identify and streamline how our members and members of the local ED department navigate and, as I say, transition the care or the custody of a person into the hospital so that they are best served for the needs that they are going through. As a side note, I will make this comment that, and again, this is my own personal belief, that I think that our local hospital should give some consideration to looking at and identifying if they should become a Schedule I facility that offers a full catchment of mental health services. A challenge that we as a police service have is that if a community member is treated at the local hospital and a doctor issues a Form 1 under the Mental Health Act, which really triggers them being taken to a Schedule 1 facility. The challenge in our community is we then have to export that community member to either a hospital in London, Stratford, St. Thomas, Sarnia, are the closest Schedule 1 facilities, and I think it presents some challenges for our community members who are now being removed from their communities for some medical treatments. That's a personal belief, but I do want to share that with the board, because I think that as this community continues to grow, and the value that the local hospital provides, not only for residents of Strathroy-Caradoc, but the outlying areas, because we are a catchment area for many people who don't live in Strathroy-Caradoc who are coming to our local hospital.
Follow up.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Chief, and I echo your personal belief that we need to do more here, knowing that mental health is a global issue. It's also a real issue here in Strathroy-Caradoc, and if we have the resources to do more, I think we should do more. And the reason why I mentioned it, at some point in time, I think we as a board need to be prepared to lend our voices behind and support in any way that we can. And I'm quite sure, Chief, you will let us know when you think the time is appropriate, but I wanted to bring that up to alert my fellow board members that at some point in time we need to stand up and support the chief and the community by doing what we can with the local hospital to ensure we do become a Schedule 1 hospital. So thanks, Chief.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Strathroy-Caradoc has, I think, a very interesting profile. We have our own police force for a community of our size. We also have a hospital for a municipality of our size. And I don't know how many communities of our size in Ontario can actually say that. And I think there's a real opportunity for an element of municipal agency where, you know, the new CAO of the hospital, Julie McBreen, you know, the chief, Mark Campbell, the mayor, Quillen Grantham, can sit down and have a pointed discussion about what are the steps that we need to take as a community to approach the provincial government for the funding necessary for our facility to become a Schedule 1 hospital with mental health opportunities for our community members. And it's almost like this is a perfect kind of laboratory in which to do it. We're the right size of community. We have the hospital, we have the police force, we have a municipality that wants to be progressive in terms of peacekeeping and not criminalizing mental health. And I think we have an exciting opportunity. So, you know, at the risk of overstepping as a police board chair, you know, the neat thing about living in a small community is I know the mayor, Colin, I know the chief, Mark, I know the CEO of the hospital, Julie, and I'm the chair of the police board, John, and it would be, I think, fantastic at some point if we could arrange to have lunch and have a fulsome discussion about how do we approach the provincial government in a constructive way to demonstrate to them that they have an opportunity to show to the rest of the province what can happen when the police board, the hospital administration, and the hospital board and the municipality, we all work together, because we all know each other and we know what we want for our community, and I think we can make good things happen. And maybe, you know, we get Monty McNaughton in on lunch as well, and maybe we have a nice chat about what can be done and find out what these steps are. But anyway, that's enough of me going on. But great discussion, and thank you for bringing that up, Mayor Grantham.
If I just may, just a couple additional comments. One specifically, because you know, we have a board member here who also in his daytime or nighttime activities is a partner with the London Middlesex Ambulance Service. And again, I think that there is a fairly comprehensive discussion pieces that as we continue to work through specifically the hospital transition protocol, it also directly affects the EMS providers as well. And there is a multitude of opportunities, I think, that are available for us. And again, if we look at it from that elevated lens, I see a lot of potential benefits. Again, not only for the service providers and finding efficiencies, but remembering it's about serving our community members first and foremost, and that's perhaps we sometimes lose focus of that's what the priority should be. You know, when we get busy in trying to find, you know, collaborative working opportunities, again, sometimes we lose focus of what the priority really should be, and that's our community members.
Some exciting opportunities with this. Matt Hall, Member Hall.
Yeah, I can add that. Yeah, I can't speak for our chief or our service, but I agree that anything we can do to divert people going to our busy hospitals in London. So I'm not sure if anyone's been to Victoria Emerge lately in the past year or two, but it's busy. It's only getting busier, and especially when you're dealing with people in mental health crisis, the last place they need to be is a busy department like that with all that's going on. So anything we can do to keep them local and give them the help here, I'm sure, yeah, we would get behind and 100% support. I think it's a good idea.
Fantastic. Sounds like we have a bit of a project, something proactive that we can all work on together. Thank you, and give the floor back to the chief, and we can proceed with the agenda.
Great, thank you. On the overtime report, a little bit of an uptake in hours so far this year. Those have all been operationally based overtime hours. And again, I have no concerns or challenges with where we're at this point. On the lost hours in training report, you'll see mandatory training, 9 hours. This is the tail end of our in-service, our winter in-service training program. We did have one member who attended the frontline supervisor course. Actually, I believe it was in Sarnia, not in Elmer. It's a course that is run through the Ontario Police College, but it was a satellite training opportunity in Sarnia. And then you'll see the breakdown of 3 members on short term. One of those members has actually returned in I'll call it a light accommodated duties. He's just working his way back to full uniform duties. Moving over to the accumulated time owing, no concerns with the hours or the dollar amounts related to that. No use of force for the month of February, and just 11 FOI requests that we are processing, which are normal numbers from previous months. So those are the monthly reports that I have to report on, and unless there's any additional questions.
Seeing none, let's proceed with 4.6, the budget update.
Thank you, Chair. Sometimes this number looks scary when the general taxation number isn't in there, but when I looked at the percentage used in all their different expense areas, again, I have no concerns about where we are at for this time of year with our budget. There was a change, and I believe it's in the expense area, the police IT expenses. I'm not sure if you have an updated, but it shows that there's a 102% of the ALPR. That had appeared in, I believe, in the building before. And so that's, I just want to make the board aware that we had received grant money for that ALPR. This is the automated license plate reader program. It's really a 3-camera system. There's a front-facing vehicle camera. There's a camera for the automated license plate readers, and then the 3rd camera is for our prisoner area in the back seat of the car. Again, we had applied for and received grant funding in the value that you see there, and so we've purchased we paid for the cameras with the grant money we received. We're again, it's one of those IT projects that I'm looking to get off the floor. Hence the earlier discussion with the proceeding with the IT contractor position. So, other than that, I don't have any concerns with the budget in relation to expenses year to date.
Any budgetary questions for the chief? Seeing none, let's proceed to 4.7.
So this report is a report that we receive through CROMS. CROMS is the accident reporting vendor where we send all of our motor vehicle collision reports to, and on a quarterly basis they send us back data analysis. I'll sort of speak from some of my talking points when I presented to Middlesex County Council. It was really a snapshot at the 3/4 pole, where this is at the finish line of last year. A lot of the data that is in that report, there was 2 or 3 kind of trends that I spoke to at County Council. One is we have a lot of animal strikes. We have a lot of collisions that occur in parking lots. And so overall I guess you would call your typical accidents that are occurring on the road. A lot of times it is driver inattentiveness that is the leading cause to collisions occurring. You will find that a majority of the time the weather is clear. You will find a majority of the time the roads are dry and clear. And you'll find a majority of the time that if there are 2 vehicles involved, at least one of the drivers is driving properly with due care and attention. If they are intersection related collisions, it is generally that someone has failed to stop or failed to yield the right of way. Overall, I would say we as a police service are not overly concerned with the numbers of collision and the types of collision. Do we have lots of complaints of speeding drivers? We do. But I would say the leading cause of collisions is more driver inattentiveness than the result of speed.
Thank you. Those are some great takeaways from about a 30-odd page report, which really encapsulates a lot of material there. Any questions for the chief on this? Member Hahn?
The interesting fact that I noticed in those 30 pages was the number of single motor vehicle collisions. That figure is very high. Single motor vehicle, so single person or single vehicle.
Again, through the chair to Member Hahn, and again, that's a direct correlation to the number of animal strikes.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Anytime, obviously, we don't take the particulars of the animal that we hit, so it does appear just as a single motor vehicle.
Oh, that clarifies it. Thank you so much.
Mayor Grantham?
Just a comment, driving the township roads 4 or 5 times a day, I can concur with the animals, the number of times that I've hit deer, and I know where the spots are in Caradoc Township, where to be careful, but the animals and the deer, they run wild.
I know to clean up some of the data, and again, this some of the data that we talked about at County Council. When you see the intersection data, there's some clarification I want to make in relation to intersections. So, as part of the requirement for completing a motor vehicle collision report, we will identify the roadway that the motorist is traveling on, and we'll use the next nearest roadway as the corresponding intersection. So in the one page, it identifies some of the high collision intersections. I just want to put an asterisk beside that, that not all of those collisions are occurring at the intersection. So a majority of the ones, I think Glendon and Sutherland is the leading one. What I reported at County Council was that those were all car versus deer collisions. They weren't occurring at the intersection, but they were occurring either on Sutherland, either north or south of Glendon, or on Glendon, east or west of Sutherland. So those intersections are identified, but that doesn't mean that there was 8 collisions at the intersection of Glendon and Sutherland involving 2 vehicles. Conversely, it was the opposite. It was a single vehicle and a no likelihood of deer.
I'll ask a question, and Chief, this type of report and the correlation, of course, with single vehicle collisions with deer, is this data used by our roads department to make recommendations about signage for deer crossings and areas where there's a high likelihood of an animal collision? Do we have that crossover in terms of this reporting and the signage?
We haven't brought that data forward. It's certainly something that could be discussed at our traffic committee meetings. And it's probably a good opportunity because we have representation from the county engineer as well. And obviously some of these roads, even though they flow through our municipality, are not under the direct control of the municipality. And I certainly want to have at least some say or some discussions with the county engineer before we're making suggestions about deer crossing signs potentially on their roadways that they are maintaining.
Yeah, if nothing more, the data could be provided to them and they can make those recommendations. But I think we always like data-driven decisions as opposed to people just making things up on the fly. So thank you very much for that. Any questions for the chief on this matter? It's a great report.
If I may, and I think the suggestion I would make is perhaps condensing the report down from 37 pages to something a little more palatable to the members, maybe an 8 to 10 summary of information so that it's not 37 pages of scrolling and graphs.
But I also like your 1 or 2 paragraph overview that's based in the data. And I think something like that appended to it would be a great executive summary for anybody. I mean, histograms are great, but punchy little paragraphs are good too. So, and then you have all the data to support it. Okay, thank you very much. Then I guess we can proceed on to 4.8.
So this is the report that, again, Member Hahn cited that was challenging and difficult to read. Again, it's prepared by our partners at Canadian Mental Health. There's actually 2-year cycle in there. I think if you scroll to the left, you'd see that there was the 2021, 2022 information as well. My summary details would be there's a lot of work being done, both locally with our team and again, I've mentioned this to the board that when this program first launched, it was a collaboration between ourselves and Middlesex OPP and CMHA, trying to leverage the opportunity to bring mental health workers into our organizations to be the front-facing response to mental health calls in our communities. Again, not just Strathroy-Caradoc, but communities that are inside Middlesex County and policed by the OPP. So that's why you see the combination of both Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service and OPP data in that report. The 2 areas that I know that I will speak to are the live calls for service, which is really the bread and butter behind the program. But the follow-up contacts is a part of the program that as the program continues to grow and become a basic service of what we're offering in this community. The follow-up contacts and the value that that offers to not only the person who was previously in crisis, but the family supports and the friend supports of that person are becoming invaluable. It truly shines a different light on how we are able to provide supports to people, not just the people that are in crisis, but those people that, again, are that inner circle to people. And you'll see that there is a lot of contact, there's a lot of time being spent, a lot of information, a lot of program sharing, which I think is going a long way to helping people not only get put into the right level of service or find the right level of service, help navigate the challenges of getting into service. There's just a lot of different touch points that are occurring. And so those are parts of that report that I would like to highlight. And but certainly there are some other details. There's some gender, some race-related data, which again, because it's a ministry-funded program, it's important to also have and collect that information so that you're providing complete and accurate data. But those first two talking points are the points that really I find impactful in how we're providing a service to community members.
Thank you. A lot of data here again, another 30 pages of data, but again, it could be condensed in a way where there might be more takeaways and people might be able to absorb it a little more easily. I found that the half pages and having to go over very difficult and tiresome. But Member Hahn.
I was interested, as I had mentioned, on that report, but I also appreciated the compliment under Communications 3.1.6, the expansion of the basic constable training program, that there's now 3 additional days for mental health crisis response training for, police constables. And I thought, this is a segue into, reality over in the police departments, and I appreciated that they've made that a special course or online training course.
Yeah, through the chair to Member Hahn, I think the natural progression is most, if not all, police services in the province of Ontario are offering an MCERT type program. It may have different names, but the genesis of the program is fairly similar from Windsor to Ottawa to the north. So I think the arrival of an extra 3 or 4 days of training for brand new officers going through the basic constable training program is, now that it's present in the most, if not all, services, they're going to see it when they get back to their home service. And it does offer some entry-level training opportunities for those members to acquire some skills, de-escalation skills, communication skills, that they will undoubtedly see either on day 1, day 2, or somewhere throughout their policing career.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments on that material? Just a side comment by myself, the CMHA data here, of course, would be absolutely critical in any kind of discussion that might take place to encourage the province to turn SMGH into a Schedule I hospital with a full suite of mental health treatments available. So, if we were to have a discussion between some of the principals who might be able to help present a case to Monty McNaught, we'd certainly want CMHA at the table as well, so they could deal with maybe the police force in presenting the data about the need. Because when I see that there's 88 live calls to the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service, when you start taking a look at what goes on in a week, in addition to everything else, that can take up a lot of resources, because I'm sure that a fair bit of time has to be spent on some of these calls. Because de-escalation sometimes takes a bit of time. It's easy to maybe it's faster to arrest somebody as opposed to de-escalate them. And I can just see where, you know, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes resources to accomplish this type of policing. Chief?
Again, I agree, the presence of the MCERT program, it's certainly not an either-or program in regards to response to mental health concerns in our community. It, in its basis, it's really meant to try to provide the right services to the right people at the right time without that all flowing through an emergency department setting. I think our partners at CMHA, along with some others who are very instrumental in this field, understand that there is a lot that occurs with multiple partners, and there isn't one solution available to solve or to lessen the impact of mental health in our communities. I think the mayor had mentioned earlier the supports from the upper levels of government, I think, still need to be leveraged. And I can tell you from a policing perspective, and I do see and I do read the media stories, I see the social media posts that often identify and are critical sometimes of police response to mental health calls for service. I do fully support. I think that there is an opportunity for social agencies to, through maybe increased funding, to be able to increase programming that is going to provide even a bigger safety net for people who are experiencing mental health crisis in our communities.
Thank you, Chief. Any more comments on this item before we proceed? Seeing none, then we have maybe a motion here that we could receive all of the items from 4.1 through 4.8 for information. Moved by Mayor Grantham, second by Member Hall. All those in favor? Thank you very much. We've already dealt with item 5 out of order, so that brings us to 6 inquiries or comments by members. Now, I'm going to start with Member Hall over here. Do you have any inquiries or comments, sir?
I have none. Thank you.
Member Wiersma.
My humble apologies, I got wrapped up in personal stuff, but I have none.
Okay, thank you very much. And our guest, Ron LeClaire, do you have any comments? Okay, Chief, yourself?
Certainly, I just make a comment on the change in the technology in the council chambers. I think it's neat. I watched a bit of the council meeting last night on TV, but I like the idea of that you're not looking at a camera in your computer to appear on screen, and kudos to staff here at Town Hall to increase and bring forward the use of this technology.
It makes for a better look, and it's a more flattering angle when you have that zoom close-up, which I think we're all kind of tired of. Thank you for that. Member Hahn.
I really appreciated, Chair, your opening of having a moment of silence for the police officers, but also the 2 people and police officers in London that last week were also injured. And it just reminds me, and I think, how important the role of constables are in our community, how they make our community safe, but how quick something can escalate. This was a normal family dispute situation, and who would have thought it would end so tragically? And our officers are put in harm's way for every call that they make, and I think that was really important for me as a board member, but for our community to appreciate how quick elements of just normal calls can escalate.
Thank you for that. Mayor Grantham.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And this is more, Chief, a heads up and a notice of something that may be coming forward. There's been a discussion amongst a couple of councillors regarding the use of photo radar as a traffic calming measure. I believe it's needed. That's my own personal opinion, but no real comment on it today, other than just a heads up that at some point in time, we're gonna be coming to you for a report on the use of photo radar.
Thanks, and through the chair to Mayor Grantham. I was aware of some interest that had been expressed. I provided some preliminary information on the use of photo radar. Currently it has, I'm not going to say limitations, but there are some specific areas that it is permitted to be used in, either a school safety zone or a community safety zone, which are areas that a local council certainly can designate. And then there are certainly some administrative pieces to the program that I think require some further exploration from a costing perspective, just so that no one goes in with blinders on and then realizes it's an expensive program to maintain or run, as opposed to thinking that there is a potential for revenue sources. But again, I think that we're very early, and certainly there's lots of information to gather and to share and make available for decision makers. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Wiersma.
Yeah, just in connection with that, I'm curious, Mark, whether, has there ever been any discussion in Strathroy about like what they do in the States in school zones where you have the sign that flashes and you go down to 20? Has that ever been discussed in our context?
Again, through the chair to Member Wiersma, it has been. And in fact, I think at our last traffic committee meeting, there was a report that I believe Director Strauss has brought forward to council with a recommendation for identifying certain school safety zones, which allow you to, the legislation, the provincial legislation allows you to double enforcement. So if you are speeding in a school safety zone, the fine amount doubles, and it's meant to be a deterrent to ensure that you have calming traffic enforcement in those areas.
Yeah, that's all fine, but it seems to me that this thing in the States, it seems to be very effective. You know, it's a zone you normally drive 50 through, those flashing lights go on, it says go down to 20, and everybody slows down.
And again, sorry, to sort of follow up on that. So the use of photo radar under the current legislative model permits you to only use photo radar in a school safety zone or a community safety zone. So you could, if the municipality opted to invest in and start utilizing photo radar, it can only be used in those two specific areas.
Mm-hmm.
And we've identified for council, and I believe council has identified those school safety zones. So I would say step one is completed. We've identified the zones. Step two would be introducing photo radar into those zones.
Thank you.
Yes, what a great meeting. It seems almost as though that this police service board is starting to focus on a set of priorities. One would be traffic safety and traffic calming measures in our community, and I think some of the data that we're getting is going to help council and this board make some evidence-based decisions. As well, the importance of the MCERT program in terms of helping our police force in our community respond to mental health crises, but keeping in mind that we have to do so in such a way that helps guarantee, or not guarantee, but take care of as much as possible the security and safety of the people executing that program, because we do know the incident in Edmonton, of course, probably some mental health issues there, and it just can go sideways so fast. So to the extent that we have an MCERT program, we want to pursue it in such a way that our police force members are safe in taking care of that. And also the idea that maybe the police service boards, CMHA, the hospital, and others, this police board, the council, we can come together in some way and try to lobby in an effective and organized way for Schedule I mental health facilities at our local hospital to take pressure off those systems in London, and also demonstrate to the province that this is probably an effective way of policing a community. So there are some interesting trends developing, and it would be very interesting to see how we can pursue those over the next year or two. With that said, we have our scheduled meetings, Tuesday, April 18th, 2023 at 10 a.m., Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 at 10 a.m., and Tuesday, June 20th, 2023 at 10 a.m. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and people online watching. And with that, I would seek a motion to adjourn. Member Hahn, Member Hall, all those in favor? And we are adjourned. I've been waiting to use that gavel. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.